Hello there, Atheist Junior here, your friend and humble narrator, and I'm back with a new live stream. Today we're going to be taking a look at some PragerU videos, and I brought a friend, Mr. Ayden. Ayden, how are you doing today?
I'm pretty good, AJ. How are you doing today? This is Ayden Linden, aka Dennis Prager. I've got to be honest with you. I've been going by many aliases or alii, you might say. You see, I'm an academic. That's why I can say that word. I've been doing it for a long time, so I'm here once again to wait. Who are we debunking PragerU. No, I'm just joking. How's everybody doing? I hope
I'm good. I'm like 3% less suicidal since the stream started, so
that's good. That's good. I would hope that margin improves as the stream goes on. Hopefully,
yes.
I'm not so unfunny that it starts swinging in the other direction. You know what I'm saying? So let's begin.
Alrighty. We're actually going to be looking at a different video. I made a little playlist actually, so I planned ahead. All right, let's. You just let me know if you want me to pause it. Standard procedure.
Sounds good to me.
Do we want captions on or off?
I don't imagine we're going to need them. I don't think that they're going to be using any words where it's like, damn, I'm going to need to open up a thesaurus real quick to figure out what that word is. Damn, it's a pretty advanced word coming out of PragerU. I kind of doubt that that's going to happen. So
I'll leave it on.
7 years, I was an atheist. I thought anyone who believed in a god or gods was, well, stupid or uneducated, naive, gullible, or just into the gig for money, sex, and power. I mean, after all, everyone knows that
I got the money and the power both gyrating.
I love how they have power represented by a fucking battery here. Like, there's nothing better that your fucking conceptual artist can come up with than, oh, power. Yeah, that's like the thing that your smartphone is ran by, right? It's like, no, that's not what they're talking about.
I just love, yeah, we're going to see some funny illustrations here, especially one that comes on later that cracked me up. But I love the marijuana cigarette of this oafish man in a wife beater. And then I hate to say it, but this is a Stacy. Clearly, this is a.
I mean, like, how else are you able to get somebody like that while looking like that guy if it weren't for the guise of religion? You know what I mean? If it weren't for, like, this Bronze Age book that's like, don't worry about that. Just worry about polishing his knob because he's in charge of the house because Mehuzabeth of Jehebob said so.
Hey, if I can get a girlfriend, then there's hope for everybody except Lupin.
That's true. Except Lupin.
religion is just a psychological crutch for intellectual weaklings, right? So what changed my mind? Well, look, I tell the whole story in my book, Shattered, but for our purposes here on
I love how that's the dichotomy that's presented. Like, either you think that every single religious person is just a drooling fucking idiot that doesn't know their feet from their goddamn hands, or you think religion is just the ultimate truth of all reality. It's like, what an honest way of representing somebody who's critical of religion. Like,
yeah,
it's no more uncharitable than if we started this video than just with like, all Christians are just people that want to burn you at the stake for wanting to think that science is something that should be taught in schools. It's like, yeah, you could say that, but it's such an inaccurate representation that it's not going to convince anybody of anything.
Right. Oh, we're going to be seeing a lot of false dichotomies throughout these videos. I can assure you of that.
Somebody said in the chat, we have Sean in the chat that said, religion is infantile, I believe. You know, and you have every right to believe that. But I just think the idea that either you have to think it's one way or you have to think it's the other is just really dishonest and not a good way of couching this argument from the very beginning. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, I think religious people can act infantile. I think people who are religious fundamentalists can act very erratic and violently. But to say that there's not some value in learning about the history of religions or comparative religions, or that There aren't more reasonable religious and Christian people. Like some of my friends are Christians, like Nick and Julie, and Nick has got to be by far the most reasonable younger creationist I know, by far. It's not even close. Like he said one of his friends is transgender. Like you just don't, you know. Like, but you know, he's the exception to the rule. But you know, I'm glad to see that. Yeah, not it's again, we can't criticize PragerU for having false dichotomies and then try and slip into that way of thinking ourselves. You have to watch out for that.
Oh, of course, yeah. I mean, you always have to ultimately be your own worst critic as far as I'm concerned. And if you're not your own worst critic, then you probably have some level of evaluation to do. Not to the point where it's like you're doing nothing but being self-effacing, but at the same time, if you're not willing to levy criticism on yourself where, you're not hearing it from other people, then there's probably something that you need to check out as far as I'm concerned. But we can keep going with this.
I was just wondering if this book on screen is the autobiography of Roger Ebert's chin. All right.
Fuck Roger Ebert.
On Prager University, I was simply challenged by my Christian teammates on the Cincinnati Reds to read some religious books, critique them, and then share with the guys where the authors were wrong and why atheism is the only real and true outlook for anyone not deceived by fantasy, fiction, or mythology. I mean, for some...
So, hold on here. So, we have a big stack of fucking books that are like, he had me read a bunch of religious books. And then the very last one that's like on top of all of them, because of course, I mean, like, this book of Bronze Age mythology has got to be better than this book of Iron Age mythology. Am I right? I mean, like, come on. But are we really expected to believe that this fucking Mr. Clean, Professor X, man-child, like, both got together, had a baby, rip-off, wannabe motherfucker, really read the Quran and the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita and all of these different holy books just for the sake of some, like, random college or university course? I somehow doubt that. I'm sure that maybe you read the Cliff Notes of a couple things, but let's not act like you're just this fucking mega mind-esque figure that just, yes, I'm just going to comb through this book over the course of an evening. Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire by Edward Gibbon. A good afternoon read. Shut the fuck up.
Someone who wants to base their beliefs and values upon evidence and argument, not emotion and tradition. Now look, simply put, I set out to disprove theism, which I didn't think would take very long. But I ran into some difficulties along.
The concept of theism? Or you set out to disprove every religion individually?
Like, just the very idea that a god could exist just can't be the case. Every single person that I tend to find that is in this grift, this whole, like, I used to be an atheist too, guy. Hello, fellow kids. I too was once one of you, but then I saw the light after happening to receive a giant bag of money, and now I've been going on this saving campaign ever since. And it's like, no. Every single time that you ever hear atheism represented by one of these dipshits, it's always just, I irrationally hated God for no reason and wanted to disprove the very idea that the essence of God or any hope within any person was a fallacy that just existed within the waking moment of your mind and nothing more. It's like, no, that's not how most people that are atheists perceive reality. Most people that are atheists tend to be way more optimistic than the way that atheism is always represented by these people. But it can never be an honest representation. I've never, not one of these big publications has ever gotten that right. And I don't think that that's a coincidence.
Yeah, it's like, what Bath Salt's Vin Diesel here is saying is basically the same thing as when I hear, I used to be an evolutionist.
Bath Salt's I'm not gonna get that out of my head for the rest of the time that this fucker's on the screen. Thanks, AJ.
Yeah, I kind of slipped that one in there.
That's good. That's good. It's good to
Along
slip
the
it in
way.
like he slipped in those
Difficulties
bath
like
bombs.
Aristotle, Augustine, Aquinas. I mean, in simple terms, I was confronted with the awareness that there are really 4 big bangs.
Is that how you pronounce Aquinas?
Yeah, it's Aquinas, but like he's like basically saying, I listened to a whole bunch of dead white dudes from the Middle Ages that said a bunch of shit that was the common understanding at the same time that we thought that the Earth was the center of the universe and that the sun was something that was rotating around on a giant fucking disc on top of the sky and that the sky was a giant ocean. You know,
And
like
that people having seizures was demonic possession.
right, like when that was the prevailing thinking is when these people are deferring to as far as these ideas. And it's like, okay, what about Muhammad? Like, what about Buddha? What about Confucius? What about all of these different people that have come before, after, and were in the midst of Jesus that also had oh, well, their magic isn't real. Our magic is. Shut the fuck up.
Things that have to be accounted for, not just one. I had never really even considered that before. I mean, we're all familiar with the first Big Bang, right? It's usually the answer given to the question, why is there something rather than nothing? It's the idea that there was nothing, it popped, and boom, there's something. I mean, that time, matter, and space all came into existence in some great cosmological flash about 16.
Why is it these creationists don't understand the concept of space-time instead of time and space being 2 separate things?
I mean, it's not even excusable because it's been like the common understanding for like 100 years at this point that space and time are 2 things that are interlinked with each other. Like we get more and more evidence of things like what Einstein was proposing with physics every single day. The latest one was the distortional effect that we've observed with black holes, or I believe it was quasars that were distorted by gravitational effects from distant galaxies. They were like mirrored in a way that was predicted by Einstein over like 100 years ago. And that's what we're operating on when we're talking about things like space-time. It's not this brand new innovation that just came out. No, it's something that these people on a generational level have chosen not to understand because it's better for their grift that this be misrepresented than people actually understand the meaning of basic terms as far as cosmology is concerned.
Yep. Sorry, my fucking watch is beeping.
15 billion years ago. There was no gradual development, no transitional forms, just a binary flip, a metaphysical, now you don't see it and now you do. Fine, I want to follow the evidence wherever it leads.
Pause.
However, astrophysicists,
one moment it wasn't, one moment it was. It's like flipping a light switch. It's like, yeah, obviously, if there wasn't a point prior to t=0 where time existed, there had to be a very beginning point at which that case was no longer there. You know, like when space-time became a thing, that is obviously going to be different than when there isn't that thing. So I don't understand why he like says that so flippantly, like that's just such a ridiculous idea. Oh, they think it was just nothing one moment and then something another. Like, what's the alternative? Exactly. It's not exactly like these guys have it. Sorry. I was just about to say, it's not exactly like these dipshits have an alternative as far as like the idea that one moment there was literally nothing at all, and then there was another thing. But the difference is that they decide to add Magic Man into the mix. That's really the biggest difference.
Big Bang yielded only a handful of fundamental elements, and that it would take billions and billions of years for the nuclear furnaces of trillions of stars to yield the 118 elements in the periodic table. But the first theoretical cosmological Big Bang, well, it only yields matter and energy. Doesn't
See, it's a good thing that we can get those higher elements than iron from supernovae.
Right. Right. This is something that I've heard Kent address before as well. How do you get things heavier than iron? It's like, if you are somebody that has supposedly studied astronomy, then you know for a very long time in astronomy, we've understood that supernovae, hypernovae, GRBs, there's a variety of different things that can happen in our universe that can produce elements heavier than iron. And by the way, at the very beginning stages of our universe, there was no like consolidated hydrogen or helium or lithium or anything like that, because everything was so fucking hot at the beginning of the universe that it was basically just a giant fucking soup of like gluons and protons and just a bunch of shit that wasn't able to properly coagulate, so to speak, together into something coherent until about 200,000 years after the beginning of the universe anyway. So once again, these guys' representation of this is just wrong. And I know that sounds like it's nitpicking, but it's really not when we're talking about the fundamentals of why the universe is the way that it is, right?
Right. Well, if somebody is wrong on the internet, it can't be excused.
Excuse me, sir. That's actually not correct. I have a study right here that I'll tell you very explicitly. I found it on Reddit, you see. We can keep going.
Actually, it was only quark gluon plasma, and it was too hot for the neutrons and protons to coalesce into solid matter. So you're wrong on this fact.
I mean, the stages of the early universe may have been very hot, but they're not as hot as you, my fair lady. By the way, would you suck my dick?
My anime pillow stands up straight.
I mean, I did hold the door open for you after all. I mean, it should be expected. I don't know how we got on this tangent. Let's keep going with the stream.
Didn't even begin to address the origin of life. So, how do you get life from non-life? How did
Well, it's not really life from non-life. What it is, at least on Earth, from what we understand, it's basically just the conversion of geochemistry to biochemistry. And I assume when he says life, life from non-life, he's thinking like, how do you get like an inert cube of aluminum, and from that get like a fully formed human being that's, you know, like a evolved for 4 billion years, advanced like modern life form, when really the origin of life would have been the most primitive single-celled organisms.
I mean, I'm also assuming that Mr. Oxycodone, Vin Diesel, Professor X, whatever other thing that we also added onto that wannabe look like. I'm pretty sure his position isn't that he's an immortal being that's been around since the beginning of the universe. So I'm pretty sure there was a point where he wasn't alive. And then he got to a point where he was alive. And that probably, like, if I had to guess, it went from a point where he wasn't alive and then he was in like a moment. You might even say that it was like flipping on a light switch or something like that. And I know that he's talking about like, oh, it's abiogenesis. And yes, that is different. But when you're just talking about the idea of, well, the idea that non-life could create life is just ridiculous. It's like, no, that's not ridiculous at all, as far as the fact that you once did come from just a bunch of inert matter and were formed into something that was alive, yeah, through provable naturalistic processes, not through magic. But still, the premise is not as ridiculous as he makes it out to be.
abiogenesis occur? I mean, the notion that something can come from nothing. Where's the evidence? Well, you're going to need another something from nothing leap of faith, some kind of biological second Big Bang. For all the mind-blowing advancements we've made in physics, biology, and chemistry in just the past 100 years.
Why does it look like Louis Pasteur is like ripping a bong?
Take a hit from the bong. It's a wicked fucking bong. I like it. It's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
I mean, Can you go back a little bit? I want to make sure that I got his retarded terminology right.
Only if you know what Watson and Crick are famous for.
What are Watson and Crick famous for?
They discovered DNA.
I did not know that. Or at least I did not know that off the top of my head.
They won the Nobel Prize for it, but I mean, of course, they were standing on the shoulders of a lot of other people and previous work that had preceded the discovery. But you know, that's all of science.
I'm presuming that this guy is like one of those genes are a bunch of bullshit kind of people or something like that.
I prefer khakis.
Yeah. That was way funnier than it had any right to be. That was good. That was good.
We're still no closer to making it happen. We don't have a clue. The closer we look, the wider the chasm. I mean, sure, we've learned a lot about how to manipulate life forms, how to add and subtract DNA material, even map the human genome, but we have no idea how to literally create life from dead stuff. Now, look, at this point, we still...
You didn't say dead stuff. You said nothing.
Yeah. And also, well, yeah, that's, I mean, like, the shifting of the goalposts aside, I mean, like, is that really all that surprising? I mean, the only thing that's fucking shifting on this guy is the hair or what little is there that falls off of its head every single freaking day when it realizes that it's as alone as Lupin is on a Friday night.
It's
But
okay. He's got Terry to talk to.
yeah. They've got their little corner of the internet to huddle off to. That's good. But this guy, I mean, the premise once again of life coming from non-life. Like, has he ever heard of a little thing called the Miller-Urey experiment? Like, has he ever understood that, yeah, we can't really get, as far as our understanding is concerned, past the development of some of the amino acids and building blocks. There's a gap between those and the development of things past RNA. But that gap is literally so fucking small at this point compared to what we had before. And it's things that people like Grayson have talked about before on his channel. The god of the gaps gets smaller and smaller every single day. And at this point, the gap that he's talking about, he's acting like it gets bigger and bigger, but it's not true. It's exactly the opposite. Science doesn't exactly make the God argument look more convincing as time marches on.
Still only have physics, chemistry, and some basic biology, or matter, energy, and simple life, if you will. But we still don't have a way to account for the great diversity of life forms. I mean, the huge differences between bacteria, plants, and animals. Nor do we have a way to account for the differences between man and animal. We still...
Oh, look, there's 2 unicorns on the ark. Wait, let's count how many pairs of male animals we can find.
Yeah, there's 2 male lions. 2 male lions. I was about to point that out. I would imagine that because those horns are the same on the rhinoceri, that they're probably both dudes as well.
Well,
yeah,
they're all the same size. You like they just cheaped out on this and just duplicated each animal GIF.
I was about to fucking crucify you, AJ. You're lucky.
I'm sorry. I need to just delete my channel.
I love when Drake released that song Jod's Plan. It was really good. I love that song. It was great. No, I'm just kidding. Fuck Drake. He's a piece of shit. But with this whole like Noah's Ark story, I'm presuming that this guy is a young earther. Like, I'm presuming that PragerU, because it's a backwards fucking institution that supports a bunch of backwards ideas that were refuted long before this fucking invalid even crawled the face of the earth.
I think that I think Prager and these guys are basically just old Earth creationists.
Really?
But they would have YECs on. I'm pretty sure they have before. But
like nonetheless, they still believe that Noah's Ark took place like what 5,000 years ago, rather than
Yeah.
like 3 billion years ago, which is how you explain the diversity of life as it exists on Earth, rather than a bunch of animals got in a boat a few thousand years ago, and then from like what could be at the absolute most, if you stretched credulity so goddamn far, that would wrap around the Earth several times, that you could get a few thousand animals on that boat, as the Bible describes it, and get from those few thousand animals all of the biodiversity that you see on this planet today. Like, somehow that strikes me as more ridiculous than the idea that that came from a much longer process that took place over a much greater period of time. I don't know.
Mhm.
Nor do we have a way to account for the differences between man and animal. We still don't have an anthropology at this point. So we're going to need a kind of anthropological third Big Bang to account for all this, which of course is what Darwin was after in his Descent of Man thesis. Now look, Darwin answered a lot of questions, but he could never answer the core question. How did evolution begin? But hey, we're still not done describing the world that is all around us.
Once again, like, I'm sorry that we're pausing this so frequently, but it just gets so much shit wrong so rapidly that it's so much shit to unpack. But evolution never deals with how life began. And I know that's what he means when he's talking about how did evolution get started. We don't know, and evolution has never dealt with or addressed abiogenesis. It's like getting upset that the theory of gravity doesn't address why the sky is blue. Like, that's not what the theory of gravity is here to address. So, using that as a criticism, well, the theory of gravity has no ability to explain why the sky is blue, just doesn't make any sense. And that's exactly what this guy is doing when he says what he's saying right now.
Well, this is like the argument that I gifted to Grayson before his last Kent Hovind debate, which I thought was his best argument personally. But the argument that asking Kent, why, you say that, oh, you can't skip over these first 4 steps of my evolution definitions when he accepts atomic theory. He accepts the idea that everything is made up of small particles called atoms. And atomic theory doesn't have to account for the origin of the universe or the origin of life on Earth, but it's still a complete theory. So why does evolution theory have to? And of course, it's because he's wanting to say that evolution is a religion, so it has to start at the beginning of the universe, not billions of years after.
Right. It serves to unmask the fact that although he can claim all day long he's saying that because he just wants to inform people about the truth or some other fucking booty chatter gobbledygook nonsense, the reality is that he's just lumping those two things together because it's easier to propagate his narrative that way.
Yeah.
A final Big Bang is going to be required to explain how a mechanistic
What is with this
animal
obsession
brain
with Big
can be-
Bangs? Like, why? Why does everything have to be the Big Bang of this, the Big Bang of that?
I don't know. I guess dollar store Patrick Stewart just likes to bang.
That's like saying that the 9/11 was the Gettysburg of the 21st century. Like, it just comes across as really weird. Like, yeah, Gettysburg was an important event, but like, should you compare every single other important event after that to Gettysburg? Probably not, because that doesn't really make a lot of sense, does it?
407 years ago, this guy had hair.
407 years ago, this guy would have been selling fucking snake oil salesman the very next town over that apparently grew his wretched hair back.
It's his ruinous face.
His ruinous face.
become a self-reflective human mind. Even the lowest life forms have brains and central nervous systems.
I know, even you.
I mean, how does...
Even Lupin.
Hey guys, Amoeba giving human flesh here. Just do another stream. No,
gonna get into that. We're going. Moving forward.
Something like that become the mind of a Michelangelo, a Shakespeare, a Beethoven. Come on, animals don't do art and they don't appreciate beauty.
I've literally seen videos of elephants painting paintings.
Like there's fish. I forget the name of them. I'll have to look it up. But I remember this on Blue Planet. It's like stuck in my mind ever since I first saw it. But there's a certain species of, I believe, pufferfish that at the bottom of the ocean, as part of their mating ritual, will literally like make these massive elaborate patterns at the bottom of the sea floor. And it's not an easy thing to do because the environment is shifting so often down there from the currents and other different forces that it's something that they have to constantly maintain. So it's not just like something that, whoops, accidentally made a huge, beautiful piece of seafloor artwork. No, it's part of how they attract mates. So maybe they don't necessarily do it for the exact same intent as we do it. Do we really know for sure? Probably not. I would be willing to venture guess that that's not the case. But this idea that, well, animals just don't make art at all is just kind of stupid because it's not true.
Yeah, I mean, there was the macaque who took a selfie, and they copyrighted that image, and the macaque owns the copyright. Have you seen that picture?
I think I have, yeah.
It's a great photo. I mean,
that reminds me of like those there's like a certain amount of trees out there in the world that like own their own property rights so that they can never be cut down. They basically own themselves, legally speaking, which is pretty fucking based as far as I'm concerned. But yes, yeah, I have seen this one. Yep. Yeah, it's a good photo. It's a good photo.
Yeah. I consider that to be art. Yeah, I want to get to the next video because this one is just boring.
Yeah, we can move on from this fucking snooze.
Do you believe that good and evil exist?
Oh boy.
The answer to this question separates Judeo-Christian values from secular values.
Okay, can you pause?
Let me offer the clearest.
What the fuck is this obsession with Judeo-Christian? Like, I hear it all over the goddamn place. And it's like, you're not Jewish, though. Like, you're not Jewish.
With Dennis Prager specifically, it's because he is a whore for Israel.
Yeah.
Yeah. I support the giant, uncaring apartheid death machine, so I'm going to say Judeo-Christian as a dog whistle to all those people.
It's like, okay, bro, whatever. It's not. It's like trying to have your cake and eat it too. You're either a Jew, like religiously speaking. Obviously, you can be ethnically Jewish, but religiously speaking, you're a Jew or you're a Christian. You're not both. You don't see a lot of Christians out there going like, I'm a Christianic Jew. You don't really see that. At least I've never seen it. Maybe there are a few people out there running around calling themselves that, but
Jesus was a Jew.
Right. But I feel like that's I believe that he was ethnically Jewish, right? Like, I don't think that he had the same ideas about Yahweh that those guys in robes had. Otherwise, they wouldn't have had those little arguments that they did. But, yeah.
Possible example, murder. Is murder wrong? Is it evil? Nearly everyone would answer yes, but now I will pose a much harder question.
Okay.
How do you know? I'm sure you think murder is wrong, but how do you know? If I asked you how you know that the earth is round, you would show me photographs from outer space or offer me measurable data. But what photographs could you show? What measurements could you provide that prove that murder or rape or theft is wrong?
Well, you're comparing apples to oranges here because you're talking about empirical data, literally a measurement, or of the Earth having curvature versus being flat, or like measuring the circumference of the earth versus an ethical, moral issue, which
Right.
is not going to be able to have such a cut and dry answer. But I was saying earlier when I was doing the test stream that I could say I know that murder is wrong because it's wrong definitionally, because it's illegal, and that doesn't necessarily mean something is wrong, but it's illegal, and it is by definition the unlawful killing of somebody against their will, usually tends to be violently,
Right.
versus just killing somebody or at the ending of a life, which can be not against somebody's will. It can be like a willing assisted suicide or euthanasia. And so murder is wrong by definition. Murder is wrong because our society has a consensus that it's wrong.
Well, also, I mean, like, he's talking about, like, what provable metrics do you have to be able to show that murder is wrong? And I mean, you can show a variety of impacts from murder, as far as the fact that, if you want to look at things that coldly, and he invited this comparison by comparing it to, like, the roundness of the earth and showing empirical data for that. So it's not even a matter of, oh, look at these cold atheists just trying to measure everything by their base worth. But, like, the economic potential of that person has been cut off for the rest of their life because they're no longer able to function anymore. Their family is probably going to have a grieving period where they're no longer going to be able to function, and they won't, or at least function to their full extent and potential. Other children that might have been had by that person would have also been able to contribute to society that no longer are capable of contributing to society by the virtue of them not existing. Like, there's implicational arguments that can absolutely be made outside of Magic Man to say that somebody's life being taken and their potential being severed from having any further progress is a bad thing. So it's not just a matter, once again, it's just yet another false dichotomy out of these people of it's either one or the other. No, it's not.
Yeah, it's like it's empirically one or the other. Either the earth is round or it's flat. But it's like, how are you defining the term wrong? Because right and wrong, it has such a spectrum of like definitions, and because morality is not objective. But even on this list, I mean, most people would agree that the first two are objectively wrong. But with theft, there's the classic argument of somebody stealing food who's starving.
Right.
Is that wrong? Well, in that context, most people would say that it's probably still wrong, but understandable at least, or they could sympathize with why the person did it. Where with the others, you really they're usually thoughtless or senseless crimes.
Right. I mean, this is all ultimately in the service of this idea that somehow religious people operate by means of objective morals, whereas us filthy rabble down here in atheismville, we believe in subjective morals. Oh, could you imagine living your life by subjective morality? How horrible a thought. The idea that morality could be subject to change under circumstance. Except when you really take a moment and you actually think about that for more than half a fucking goddamn second, you kind of come to the conclusion that you have to live your life under those conditions. You have to live your life whereby what you believe is right or wrong is circumstantial to change. Like the classic example is, oh, lying is wrong all the time, according to the Bible. It makes it very
According
clear.
to you.
Well, according to the Bible, Book of Revelation, it says that no liars shall inherit the kingdom of God. So if you fucking lie, then you better get your story straight or you're fucked as far as the Bible is concerned. Okay, you live in 1940s or 1930s Germany, the Gestapo. Yes, hello, sir. We are looking to, investigate your house. Do you have your papers, sir? Yes, thank you, thank you. Yes, it appears that there are enemies of the state that are sheltering below your floorboards, I believe. Is that true, sir? Like, according to biblical morality, the guy in Inglourious Bastards, he was in the right for saying, yeah, there is. Go under there and fucking kill those people. He was in the right for that, because you should never lie. But I'm willing to bet that most people, if you ask that, if they were Christians, they would say, no, I wouldn't give those people up. Well, why wouldn't you give those people up? Because, yeah, I mean, like, lying is bad, but if that lie can save those people's lives, then isn't lying better than not lying then? And I would agree. But guess what? Then you've opened yourself up to the fact that your morality, what you consider right or wrong, isn't always one way or the other. It's subject to change under circumstance. It's subjective, which is why I always say that, you know, objective morality, as far as these Christians understand it, is just a bunch of subjective moralities wearing a trench coat with the label objective morality just kind of stenciled on a Sharpie, you know, like on a Post-it note on top of it. But
yeah,
it's
it's three subjective moralities standing on each other's shoulders in a trench coat.
right. It's exactly what it is. Sorry,
but this Nazi thing is going to come up, I think, in this or a future video. But I just wanted to say that a little callback to Tarantino's previous movie that I actually just realized this like today or yesterday. The sort of active dominance of chugging. He drinks the entire glass of milk. It's kind of like how Jules or Samuel Jackson's character chugs the guy's soda.
Yeah. That's exactly what I was thinking of as well. It's just a power move. Yeah. It's just, yeah, I got total control over this situation. You can't do shit about shit, motherfucker.
Yeah. All right.
The fact is, you can't. There are scientific facts, but without God, there are no moral facts. In a secular world, there can only be opinions about morality. They may be personal opinions or society's opinions, but only opinions. Every atheist philosopher I have read or debated on this subject has acknowledged that if there is no God, there is no objective morality. Judeo-Christian values are predicated on the existence of a God of morality. In other words, only if there is a God who says murder.
So, what if I told you, Dennis, that the God of the Bible doesn't adhere to objective morality either? Because he doesn't. The idea that circumcision is something that you need in order to be part of God's covenant. You know, if you're just reading the Old Testament, like I saw somebody in the chat say that apparently Dennis Prager is Orthodox Jewish. I wasn't aware of that. But if that's the case, then you read the Torah, Dennis, and you stop at that point. You don't move forward from the New Testament. So maybe you can be insulated from this argument by saying, well, the New Testament is a bunch of fucking bullshit. But, you know, most people that are Christian would still have to account for the fact that Old Testament God says, you gotta cut off that part of your pee-pee, Moses. If you don't cut that shit off, then we're not cool, G. Like, that's very explicit in the Old Testament. Like, David literally goes around collecting, like, what is it, like 100 foreskins or whatever? He, like, collects a whole bunch of people's freaking pee-pees, or at least part of them, as, like, a whole thing for Solomon. It's part of the Bible. I forget which part it is. But that's Old Testament God. But then New Testament God comes in. He's like, nah, actually, it was just a prank, bro. It was all a social experiment. You can leave it. It was fine the entire time. They had to have a whole get-together about that. And they came up with like, yeah, it's cool. You don't got to do that anymore. Well, which one is it? Because it can't be both.
Yeah, but we're not cool, bro. And you totally scratched my DVD of Anchorman 2.
You taped over my episode of Lost for the 3rd time, and for that you will be damned to hell for all eternity. No!
Murder is wrong. Is murder wrong? Otherwise, all morality is opinion. The entire Western world, what we call Western
So close to
civilization,
the truth, and he
is
doesn't even
based on
realize
this
it.
understanding. Now, let me make two things clear. First, this doesn't mean that if you don't believe in God, you can't be a good person. There are plenty of kind and moral individuals who don't believe in God and Judeo-Christian values. But the existence of these good people has nothing to do with the question of whether good and evil really exist if there is no God. Second, there have been plenty of people who believed in God who were not good people. Indeed, more than a few have been evil and have even committed evil in God's name. The existence of God doesn't ensure people will do good. I wish it did. The existence of God only ensures
Wait,
that good and evil.
wait. It's kind of fucked up, Dennis. Like, if you really think about it, like,
I wish everybody was just a bunch of fucking robots that didn't have a choice but to do what I wanted them to do.
it's like that's a weird thing to just throw in and then just kind of move past in this video.
Well, I'm pretty
Okay.
sure he's about to like undercut what he just said. He loves to do that. So
Okay, my bad.
Full
My
object-
bad. I fell for it. I
Objectively
fell into the
exist.
trap.
and are not merely opinions.
Ah,
Without God, we therefore end up with what is known as moral relativism, meaning that morality is not absolute, but only relative to the individual or to the society.
God, this obnoxious ass editing, dude.
I know, it's like
We need to make everything look like one of those news placards you read at an airport in order to announce when your flight is, because that's really relevant in the modern day.
it's like why? Why do we have to do that? I'm not catching a fucking flight at JFK Airport at 4:30 in the morning. Can we just watch a video and have it be presented like a normal person would read something? I don't know.
Yeah, it's like, let's have this geriatric Jew present a bunch of facts about religion and make it look like a fucking Transformers trailer.
Transformers.
Like, can we get an Inception horn, like a bomb?
Jew formers.
I'm leaving that one alone from there.
Transgender. I'm not touching that one either.
Yep.
Without God, the words good and evil are just another way of saying I like and I don't like. If there is no God, the statement murder is evil is the same as the statement I don't like murder. Now, many will argue that you don't need moral absolutes. People won't murder because they don't want to be murdered. But that argument is just wishful thinking. Hitler, Stalin, and Mao didn't want to be murdered, but that hardly stopped them from murdering about 100 million people. It is not a coincidence that the rejection of Judeo-Christian values in the West.
I don't think those leaders murdered 100 million people. I think their policies led to the deaths of a lot of people, but usually murder is seen as something that you carry out with your own hand.
Right. I mean, I'm not, you're not going to find, I don't think either one of us doing any apologetics for any of the people that he just mentioned anytime soon. But at the same time, one doesn't have to do apologetics to recognize the fact that saying that these people are solely responsible for all of that, I'm pretty sure that if I tried telling him, okay, well, what about everybody that died at the hands of these religious groups throughout history, or these religious figures that made their radical views known and then ended up starting a gigantic fucking conflict? Like Martin Luther started the fucking 30 Years' War that at that point would have been the most destructive conflict in all of human history, that like was so incredibly destructive it tore entire families apart and wiped out entire families on many occasions. But I'm sure that if I told you, okay, well, by your standards, that would make Martin Luther guilty, right? You'd go, no.
Alrighty, so we're gonna sort of round out the stream on a bit of a palate cleanser because I actually might have a lot to say about this last video.
The Mona Lisa. the Pietà, the girl with a pearl earring. For a score of centuries, artists enriched Western society with their works of astonishing beauty. The Night Watch, the Thinker.
Fun fact about the Night Watch, it's called that. It's not the original title of the painting, but it was given that title because there's so much like grime and smoke and like dirt built up on the painting that it was painted originally as a day scene, but it looks like a night scene because of that. So that's why they call it the Night Watch.
I did not know that about that. Thank you for letting me know.
Yeah.
The Rocky Mountains. Master after master, from Leonardo to Rembrandt to Bierstadt, produced works that inspired, uplifted, and deepened us. And they did this by demanding of themselves the highest standards of excellence, improving upon the work of each previous generation of masters, and continuing to aspire to the highest quality attainable. But something happened on the way to the 20th century. The profound, the inspiring, and the beautiful were replaced by the new, the different, and the ugly. Today, the silly, the pointless, and the purely offensive are held up as the best of modern art. Michelangelo carved his David out of a rock. The Los Angeles County Museum of Art just offers us a rock. A rock. All 340 tons of it. That's how far standards have fallen. How did this happen? How did the 1,000-year ascent towards artistic perfection and excellence?
Acting like those two things are directly comparable to each other is just asinine. Because both are very clearly trying to accomplish different things in what they're there for. Like, this is just such a fundamental misunderstanding of what art... Thank you, AJ. You've pissed me off a little bit now. This is such a fundamental misunderstanding of what art even is. That this guy shouldn't even be allowed to fucking speak, as far as I'm concerned. Shut up, random guy whose name I've never known and will immediately forget after this video.
Yeah, and what he conveniently leaves out about this rock is actually called the levitated mass, is that when you actually see this in person, the way that it's structured makes it look like it's floating in the air. Basically, it's an optical illusion, and you have to wonder, just based on the fact of how heavy this is, about how did this get here? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, and it's not. It's like you're saying. It's not a sculpture that's competing with David. Like, oh, well, he carved this from a rock, and they just put a rock there. It's like, no, it's a completely different like aesthetic and like artistic vision. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this guy. You know what? We're gonna play a little bit more, and then I'll. Yeah. Yep.
Let's die out. It didn't. It was pushed out. Beginning in the late 19th century, a group dubbed the Impressionists rebelled against the French Académie des Beaux-Arts and its demand for classical standards. Whatever their intentions, the new modernists sowed the seeds of aesthetic relativism, the beauty is in the eye of the beholder mentality. Today, everybody loves the Impressionists. And as with most revolutions, the first generation or so produced work of genuine merit. Monet, Renoir, and Degas still maintained elements of disciplined design and execution. But with each new generation, standards declined until there were no standards.
This is a very like scientific graph.
What you see, the problem here is that y-axis that he has labeled standards. You should cross standards out and just scroll gatekeeping over top of it.
Yeah,
because that's what you really fucking mean when you put standards there, you pretentious piece of shit. All right? Like, this guy is in the vein of one of those people that, like, you know, it's like when your grandpa posts one of those things on social media that it's like, her, look at these people in the art museum. I left a shoe in the art museum and a bunch of people are going around taking photos of it. This is how far art has fallen. It's like, no, thank you for beautifully demonstrating that art is something that is subjective. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Because if it wasn't, then not a single person would take a moment to photograph whatever random object. You know, sometimes it's a shoe, sometimes it's a sock, or just some random fucking bullshit that somebody puts in a gallery and then like gets a bunch of clicks because, oh, look at all the people that are paying attention to it. It wasn't actually an art piece. That's the point. It is a subjective thing. And if you're so dense that you do something like that, and then you don't take that away from it, then, as far as I'm concerned, you're all the way on the left-hand side of the bell curve of intelligence, motherfucker. And I am glad that I'm far away from you.
Right. And you know, what you were talking about there is something that was basically pioneered all the way back in 1917 by an artist named Duchamp, who had he made what he called a ready-made, which was literally just a urinal that he put on its side and signed and put it in a museum. And it was meant to challenge the idea of what art is. And it seems like ridiculous now, just taken out of context. But the fact that it was done that long ago shows the significance of it. Like, that's crazy. You know what I mean?
Right. Like, here, I'll show you something real quick. Like, I was messing around a whole bunch with this new AI image generator thing that they've got.
Boo, boo. No,
I know. No, but I was messing around with it a whole bunch. And after like an hour worth of like editing and changing a whole bunch of prompts and getting it to do a whole bunch of stuff, it came out with this. And I was pretty satisfied with that. Now, am I acting like I've just fucking carved David from a slab of marble? No, obviously I haven't. But at the end of the day, it needs to be acknowledged that this wouldn't have just made itself. You know, it wouldn't have just come out of the fucking ether apropos of nothing whatsoever. I had an image in my mind's eye. I went through a process to make that image into something that was tangible, and eventually arrived after several iterations at something that I thought personally satisfied that. And if that's not art, then what the fuck is?
right.
All that was left was personal expression. The great art.
What isn't that what art is?
No, it's not, AJ. Art is what this fucking douchebag says that it is, because nobody ever took that approach before in human history. Like, that's the thing that dumbasses like this don't realize. Like, Michelangelo revived a style with carvings like David that had been dead in European sculpture for a very long time. The artistic motif of sculpture went away for a very long time until the Renaissance began reviving a lot of those arts again and bringing them back and making them into something that iterated on the old and made it into something new and made it into something that people could appreciate. But that took innovation. That took people taking something and realizing that they could make it into something even better than what existed before. So, like, this is no different. This revolution where the standards are just plummeting is in reality just yet another step forward in what is just human nature, which is to adapt and change.
Right.
Art historian Jacob Rosenberg wrote that quality in art is not merely a matter of personal opinion, but to a high degree objectively traceable. But the idea of a universal standard of quality in art is now usually met with strong resistance, if not open ridicule. How can art be objectively measured, unchallenged? In responding, I simply point to the artistic results produced by universal standards compared to what is produced by relativism. The former gave the world the birth of Venus and the dying Gaul, while the latter has given us the Holy Virgin Mary, fashioned with cow dung and pornographic images, and Petra, the prize-winning sculpture of a policewoman squatting and urinating.
Based. Fucking based, dude. That I love that. I genuinely love that. Look how realistic that is. That's a great sculpture. How is it that David, which is obviously an incredible sculpture, but this, which is a recreation of the human form, is not as good because, well, she's pissing, which is just fucking hilarious.
Right. Like,
but it's not about the piss, it's about the message that it's sending.
There's this idea that, like, look at all of these horrible things that have been created because of this modern idea. It's like, does this motherfucker not know that the oldest depiction of Jesus that we have on record as being, like, definitively that's a depiction of Jesus is Jesus with a fucking donkey for a head? Because the guy who depicted him was making him seem like an ass because he was making fun of one of his classmates for being a Christian. So, like, the idea that, oh, look at this mocking imagery of the Virgin Mary, look at this horrible display of idolatry or whatever the hell, this is bad, we need to get rid of it. It's just always been a thing, dude. Nothing is new under the sun. Isn't that what Solomon said in your fucking holy book? Maybe you should read it sometime.
Yeah, it's like, if this guy's freaking out about cow dung, he's really gonna be shocked when he learns about what used to be in paint pigments. Like
Stacy in the chat, only stone dicks are beautiful. Well, even then, if you go to the Vatican, they'll make sure that all those stone dicks are covered up. Because according to them, on their subjective standard of beauty, that apparently is the objective standard, which is just, I mean, like, once again, the same with just religion in general. The idea that anybody can have an objective standard of art is just disproven by the fact that other people hold opinions that are contrary to theirs. It's pretty self-refuting. But
I'm just wondering, what is pornographic about this?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I
It
don't know.
almost seems like the left one is more like these ones on the left are a little bit
Yeah.
more,
This woman that's covering up the very entrance of her twat by the finest little brush of her wrist is the height of beauty, whereas this person who's not really being exposed at all as far as any kind of genitalia is concerned, from what I see, they're absolutely horrible and disgusting, and this should be thrown on top of a pyre and burnt, along with all those horrible books that these people have been writing about transgender rights.
See, this artwork from a long time ago where you can almost see her vagina is bad, but this new one where you can almost see the woman's vagina is wait, no. The old one is good, but this one is bad. I fucked that up. And not to say that this I forget what the name of this one is, but this is a great painting, obviously. It's iconic, but, you know. Anyway, we're never going to make it through this whole video. Let's keep going.
It's a painting of Venus.
Yeah, Venus. Venus.
Complete with a puddle of synthetic urine. Without aesthetic standards, we have no way to determine quality or inferiority. Here's a test I give my graduate students, all talented.
Oh God, this guy teaches art.
Please analyze this Jackson Pollock painting.
That is so obviously not a fucking Jackson Pollock painting. Like, I already know what's coming, but that's just obviously not a Jackson Pollock painting, because if you knew anything about his paintings, he never left any canvas showing. You know?
Yeah.
And this part is fucking annoying.
And explain why it is good. It is only after they give very eloquent answers that I inform them that the painting is actually a close-up of my studio apron.
Wow. That really... How does that prove your point? Like, how
Right.
does that prove your point? That if
See,
anything,
this proves my point that I had to trick them. That means I'm right.
right? Like, I use dishonest tactics to advance my argument. Therefore, I'm right. It's like, what a oh man. Yeah, this guy is definitely the one that has pissed me off more than any of the other ones, and that's saying something because Dennis Prager is a piece of shit. He's a real right piece of shit, but this guy is just like, he's wrong in a way that is just more distasteful to me, and that's, I don't know why. I really don't, but I guess it's just because of how wrong he is. Because this is just such a fundamental, like, the fact that he's teaching art students blows my goddamn mind. Because that'd be like a carpenter saying that the first thing that they do with their carpentry students is show them a close-up of a fucking, like a fucking anvil or something like that and go, what kind of wood grain do you think this is? Once my students give answers to what kind of wood grain they think it is, I show them that it's not wood at all. It's like, okay, what did you teach them, dipshit?
All right, so let's remember that this is his hilarious pull the rug out, pull the tampon out from under you. Let's compare this to an actual Jackson Pollock and see if there's literally no difference. Oh shit. Okay. Yeah, they're totally indistinguishable. Except for the fact that this is like filling the room and obviously has an intentional color scheme and aesthetic and covers the canvas and is like kind of cool to look at, and it's interesting, and it's not a lie.
yeah, like it's portraying what it's trying to portray, and it's going to be different depending on who's looking at it. Like, maybe to the guy on the left, this looks like a snow-dappled tree line at, dawn. And to the other guy on the right, that looks like a coral reef. Like, it's going to be something different to each person. And that's kind of the fucking point.
Yeah, seriously. All right.
The Mona Lisa.
Yeah.
Them that the painting is actually a close-up of my studio apron. I don't blame them. I would probably have done the same, since it's nearly impossible to differentiate between the two.
Bullshit.
What a pretentious douchebag to just casually claim, yeah, I could basically recreate the works of a master by just splattering a bunch of random paint all over my shit.
Yeah, and this is one criticism of modern art that I've never understood, because people will look at modern art paintings and they'll say, "Oh, my kid could have done that. I could have done that." And I'm thinking, like, why is that a bad thing? Like, yeah, maybe you could have. You should try that and see if you can get into a museum. But
yeah,
like, I think the idea that anybody could do it is a good thing.
Right. Like, once again, it just speaks to this really weird tendency that snobby fucking Anton Ego from Ratatouille, but with a head of hair, pieces of shit like this guy. People like him have this really weird idea that just because their fucking hairline hasn't been full since 1967, that art just needs to forever stay in a stasis of that time and need not advance or move forward anywhere. Oh, when I was a kid, everything was just great. Back then, in this idealized time that I've created through the rose-tinted glasses of nostalgia, everything was great and everything was beautiful, and now things have declined and they're so awful and horrible. Like, that hasn't been the standard mantra of every single generation since time goddamn immemorial.
Yeah, I mean, it's what beta Larry David thinks. He knows that things was better. Things used to be better.
And who will determine quality is another challenge I'm given. If we are to be intellectually honest, we all know of situations where professional expertise is acknowledged and depended upon. Take figure skating in the Olympics, where artistic excellence is judged by experts in the field. Surely we would flinch at the contestant who indiscriminately threw himself across the ice and demanded that his routine be accepted as being as worthy of value as that of the most disciplined skater. Not only has the quality of art diminished, but also...
So let me get this straight. You're comparing art to a competition which is evaluated by objective means. Your criticism is that people misunderstand art by saying that it relies on subjective means. And then saying because art doesn't match up to the objective evaluations shown by the figure skaters, that's something in favor of your argument? No, dumbass, you're self-refuting. You're self-refuting. The fact that those are not analogous to each other shows that it is subjective. Because once again, if art was objective, like douchebags like this fucking guy claim, then nobody would care about those works that he's been citing. Nobody would care about any of this postmodern art, and it never would have caught on. But ultimately, it's all just a bunch of fucking platitudes to obscure from the fact that they just don't like the direction that art has gone in. Therefore, it has to be bad.
Yeah. I'll play a little bit of this, and then we'll take a look at this guy's art, or at least one piece of it, and then we'll end the stream. How does that sound, Ayden?
Yeah, it sounds good.
So the subject matter has gone from the transcendent to the trashy. Where once artists applied their talents to scenes of substance and integrity from history, literature.
All right.
Wow.
Let's see this guy's talent. How about that?
Did you hear that? Did you hear that? He said transcendent to trashy. There was alliteration there, so that makes him smart.
Well, you can't spell smart without art.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. This is this guy's works of art.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's colorful.
It's colorful, but I gotta be real. I'm getting waiting room. I'm getting waiting room in the dentist vibes from this, or something like that. You know, like this is like the ball pit area for the McDonald's play place, or something like that. You know, like it's not my style, but clearly it evoked different emotions in him when he created it, because I have a feeling, given how fucking pretentious he's been throughout this video, that he isn't creating with the idea that, oh yes, this is going to look great in the McDonald's play place ball pit. You know, I think he probably has this intended for a slightly different purpose, to evoke different emotions in different people.
I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just me, but this snake just looks wrong. Like its posture.
Yeah. You don't see enough of it from like, you don't see enough of its tail. So it just looks off in perspective. It looks unbalanced.
The composition is really irritating me because there's like no ground. What are they standing on?
Yeah, they're just standing on this like amorphous blue surface that doesn't really have, like, it kind of takes on a bit of it takes on a bit of definition in the background, but the background is only covered by the guy who
what was this guy's like concept? Like, I'm gonna make a flag for Pol Pot's Cambodia.
You know,
do you want to know the title of this painting or whatever it is?
Sure. Let's hear it.
Yikes, with 3 exclamation points.
Wow. Wow. I can see why this guy should be the ultimate authority on art.
Well, that's PragerU. So,
what a bunch of bullshit.
well, thank you for coming on the stream with me, Ayden. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun too. This was really good. Thank you for having me here, bro. This is it's always a good time being here. So
yeah, I'm glad you were able to join after all. Alrighty, well, we're gonna be signing off, but yeah, like the stream and leave a comment telling me what you thought of. Oh, we have Nick in the side chat.
oh, sweet.
Yeah. Let me know what you guys thought about this, and if you want to see some more videos about PragerU. I'm kind of a little bit done with Kent Hovind as of right now. So I'm going to be looking for some other channels to look at. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one, and peace out.